Hello, good afternoon. I'm joined today by Sean Hemming-Metcalf from InventoryBase. Hello, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm really well, David. Thanks for having me on today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Sean, we're going to cover a very important subject that I think, as an agent, I think not enough people are concentrating on. And obviously, we know InventoryBase and we know the importance of having an inventory report in place. But today we're going to talk about the fitness for human habitation changes that came into effect in 2019, but one of the best kept secrets in the industry. So give us a bit of background behind that.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, so the background is that in 2018, the Fitness for Human Habitation Act was enacted, and it came into force in 2019, about March time. And the whole point about it is to get rental properties up to a safe and usable spec, because there's been so many properties that have been rented out that are just basically not safe. They're not fit for someone to be in there, and that could be a multitude of things. You know, not because of heat, maybe they haven't got the right kind of sanitary options, bathrooms, showers, toilets, etc. And it's to kind of even the playing field, as it were, in the rentals, so that, you know, when people are coming into the private rented sector, they can expect a similar kind of rental stock and safety that they would expect if they bought their own home, or they were living in the social sector and any other kind of property related sector. And it's been brought in to make sure, as I said, tenants are safe, but it also then penalises landlords and agents who don't make their property safe. So it gives the tenant the ability to take the landlord to court. The court can then force the landlord to make changes, to upgrade the property to make it safe, and also make them pay compensation. So there's a lot riding on it in regards to potential penalties if the landlord and managing agent don't bring the property up to a livable standard.
So these are sometimes the punitive measures that are enacted around compliance and reports and so on, make the change happen, because it's that big hammer that comes down that forces people to do it. But rather than being a punitive step, agents and landlords would be best advised to embrace this, because in actual fact, it will make their property a better standard, which in turn is going to lead to them having a better quality of tenant. And just for the lifetime of that tenancy, it's probably going to bring your maintenance costs down if you're on your game from day one. So
exactly.
There are benefits, aren't there?
Huge benefits. I mean, you know, for me, it shouldn't be about the threat of the court action like you just mentioned. It should be about, you know, keeping the tenant safe, keeping the void times as low as possible, because that costs money at the end of the day, and no one wants to spend out, especially at the moment. There's enough legislation, enough costs happening in the private rented sector without actually adding to them. And it also helps eliminate any potential action from the councils, from the courts, you know, to take landlords to court if they don't deal with the property. To me, it's a really good tool. It's 29 steps, as it were, to better housing, to safer housing for tenants. So that, to me, makes sense on many levels. It means then the rental stock in the PRS, the standard goes up, which means landlords can then charge more because the property is in better condition. So more tenants want it. So therefore you can charge a better premium. You're probably likely to get better tenants because they appreciate the fact that they've got a really nice property that's been well cared for, well maintained, safe for them. So they'll feel that they want to stay longer. So that reduces your void period. And certainly from an agent point of view, if they're using these 29 key risk assessment steps when they're taking on property, they can then be saying to landlord, yeah, we want to take your property on, but you need to get some things sorted out first.
I think we referred to it off air as an MO, the equivalent of an MOT, or a health check for the property. I think that's so important, because how many times has an agent taken something on that in their heart of hearts they know is substandard, or something's going to go wrong, and having almost like a unified universal platform that gives you a set 29 steps there, if you like, areas and criteria that you need to adhere to. I think those, and it's really comprehensive. I'm just looking through it now. It covers all the usual suspects that crop up very early on in a tenancy: mold and damp, excess cold, so if it's not sort of insulated properly, excess heat, if it's too hot, asbestos, biocides, carbon monoxide. It's all the usual nasties that you see in there. But it then goes on to sort of cover the crowding and space. So the number of people you're likely to be able to occupy every room or every property, lighting, noise, pest control, you name it. This is fully comprehensive, isn't it?
It is. It's almost like a full property body scan, for want of a better phrase. It just takes into account everything. But to me, that's brilliant, because then if you can hit every single marker on those 29 risks, so you know the property is warm when it's meant to be, you know, during the winter, it's cool during the summer, when, especially now with climate change, you know, we're getting varying weather degrees in regards to heat and cold. And, you know, properties sometimes don't cope very well with that. I've been in properties myself, you know, doing inventories where my breath is seen in the property and it's colder in the property than it is outside the property. So there's something fundamentally wrong. And then you're expecting someone to live in that and then pay for that, and also expect them not to complain. So, you know, if you've got all of these kind of sections, all these areas all sorted and done, and everything's functioning properly, everything is up to code, everything has got its right certificates, etc., then you shouldn't have those complaints. You wouldn't be having those kind of conversations, or if you do, they're probably minor. They're minor maintenance, which then reduces the cost of the landlord. So agents might then say, well, then maybe I'm not making so much money in regards to the maintenance side of things, but then you could possibly then up your rent, your management fee, because your stock is so well maintained, because it is such good quality. So you can justify the costs in that regard.
And there's nothing wrong with having standards, is there, really?
No,
Make your
definitely
life
not.
easier, will make in the long run, it's going to make life easier for the landlords as well.
Yeah, especially because now we're living, you think about it, we're now not just living in a property, we are working in a property. So many more people are working from home. Many more people aren't going away from holiday. So effectively, the property is becoming not just the hub of the home, it is the hub of life. So if you're going to be spending 16, 24 hours a day, you know, you're not going out to work, you're literally just going from one room to the other, then, you know, you're going to want it to do everything that you need it to do. And if, as a tenant, you want a good property and you want that safety element and you want it fully functioning and fully certificated, then you're going to expect to pay more, but you don't mind that if it's, you know, at the right kind of quality level.
So Sean, that's the problem, if you like. So the solution, or the actual setup to provide these reports and to deliver to the landlord what they need. Take us through how InventoryBase helped with that.
Well, InventoryBase, as you know, we've been around for quite a while, over 9 years now. And I think, you know, certainly from my point of view, we're setting the standard when it comes to property reports, but also the software, the templates, the tools behind being able to compile the reports. So what we've done is we've built a template into the InventoryBase system so that it has, well, you've actually got two choices. You've got a very detailed one, which goes more into belt and braces, more detailed depending on, you know, what kind of level you want to work at, or a more of a risk-based one where your low levels, your medium and your high levels, so that it's much easier for, you know, most landlords if they want to complete, agents if they want to complete, or outsource to qualified providers. And it's literally the 29 steps. Each one has a question, you know, it tells you what the 29 steps are. So it could be excess cold. So this means about exposure to suboptimal indoor temperatures. In fact, is that, you know, your property should be warmer inside than it should be outside, in the same way as it would be for heat as well. And it basically then say, okay, you've got that as a barometer. So, you know, what's the risk? What's the likelihood of it being too cold, too hot, bearing in mind what options you've got available. So for argument's sake, if it's too cold, is the boiler, is it working? Is there heating? Is it electric? Are they working? Have they been maintained? You know, so things that you can do to bring up to the temperature to, you know, a good standard so that, you know, people feel comfortable. And similarly, you know, if it's hot, you know, can you open the windows? Have you got locks on the windows? Do they have keys? The amount of properties I come across, all the windows are locked, no keys. So how are you going to open them? How can you ventilate? How can I get out if there's a problem?
Sean, thank you very much for covering that with us today. All of InventoryBase's details can be found at kerfuffle.com. We look forward to talking to you again.
Lovely, thank you.